Hello, this is Robert Polenick, the owner of Brutal Iron Gym. I'm here today with Paul Peterson, one of the trainers of the gym. And the video we're going to talk about today, the topic is kind of the obstacles we run into trying to create like a healthy lifestyle. So when we have new clients come in, they'll often struggle with trying to create and fit in a new like healthy diet into their schedule, and then how to fit in training as well. So basically, if you're trying to create this new life, there's going to be road bumps, and what we're going to talk about today is which ones we face and how we overcome those. Okay, Paul.
Cool. Probably the biggest, well, the handful of them, but the biggest three probably would be just the development of new habits. I mean, always that's a really tough, just starting something new, which is directly connected then to the second one, which is time management. Like, where do I fit this new commitment into my calendar? Because most of us probably have fairly busy lives, and now we're asking for a fairly significant commitment on a weekly basis. It will require several hours at least between food prep and exercise. I mean, good handful of hours.
It always feels like you're having to add more into things that are already jammed.
Right, right. So where do you fit that in?
How do you jam more in? Yeah.
That's, just managing that has always been a big thing. But the truth is, like, once you get into the rhythm of it, it gets easier, and it becomes a part of your life. You actually reach a point where you're like, I can't imagine my life without chicken, broccoli, and rice and Brutal Iron Gym, right?
Yes, yeah.
But probably for me, the biggest thing would be getting to a point where I stop caring so much what other people think. So for me, the first time that you asked me to do a show, right? How much was it? 4 years ago? 5 years ago? Yeah. Rob came to me and said, "You should do a show," and I'd never thought about doing a show, and so started prepping for a physique show, which requires strict adherence to a diet and requires just rigorous consistency in the gym and all that stuff.
It requires a new lifestyle to be perfect.
Absolutely.
Like not only trying to eat healthy, but eating healthy perfectly.
Yeah, no mistakes.
So,
no mistakes. Yeah. And I actually did that. My first show.
Yeah, you did really well.
I really did fairly well. And then, but that requires just rigorous adherence to this plan. And the truth of the matter is, most people don't understand. They've never experienced it. Most people have never embraced that kind of rigor with diet and exercise, and so they don't understand it and they don't necessarily appreciate it. And oftentimes it's not encouraged. It's actually discouraged. I remember going to lots of parties and lots of family gatherings, and people would encourage me to just have a cookie or just have a drink or.
Well, a lot of life is revolved around food. Like, food's involved when people get together, and very rarely are people bringing vegetable plates. They're bringing cheesecake pies. So it is true. Like, when you start going to social events, it's abnormal to not also be involved in the food of that event.
Right. I think it's Andrew Weil said that food has incredible social implications. Every time you think about you go to a party or you go to some kind of event, there's food and or drinks. Mm-hmm. And it has, so when you change your diet, it does have the potential to impact your relationships. I remember going to a restaurant for a birthday party and taking a protein shake with peanut butter in it. Everybody else is eating pasta and having birthday cake. And not everybody understood that. In fact, some people didn't appreciate it. And to complicate this a little bit, and I certainly won't say any names, but I'm also a pastor. Mm-hmm. And people at my church, they didn't always understand. And there were actually a handful of people that actually left our church because they didn't appreciate. And they actually said to me, "All you think about is your body," which wasn't true.
No, I mean,
right? And it could be demonstrated.
It's a part of your life, but it wasn't.
It's a huge part of my life, right? So. But it certainly wasn't all of my life. But the point is, right? And I love these people, and I could see them now in public, and we would be just fine. In fact, we have. But the point is, they didn't understand it, and most people won't. And I know this because we work with clients a lot, and we hear this all the time. Like, I'm out on the weekend. And my friends are like, "Oh, come on, have a drink," or "Oh, come on, have a cookie," or
and often it's even the spouse.
It's right.
Like, we've run into a bunch of circumstances where, the husband or the wife will want to make some changes, the other one doesn't, and then there's some resentment or there's some conflict whenever, the one person needs to eat a healthy meal, the other one's like, "This food is crap."
Right.
So it's almost like they feel like if the other one is changing things, they feel like this change is imposed on them.
Right.
So it's hard to get through that kind of rough patch at the beginning.
I think it's absolutely true, and I think unfortunately sometimes the discouragement or the lack of affirmation that hurts the most, it comes from those people that are closest to us, which stinks. Because if you don't know me and you criticize me, I don't care.
Yeah.
But if you love me and you're close to me and you're my circle of influence and you criticize me, or you doubt me, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And so for people, especially people who are embracing this rigorous lifestyle, show prep, etc., that will be a huge obstacle to overcome. But through my training, I always embraced a quote from Albert Einstein. He said that great spirits have always found violent opposition from mediocre minds. Yeah, and to me, it's like I want to do something great. I want to do something great for myself. I want to look a certain way. I want to feel a certain way. I want to accomplish some physical goals. And I realize that's going to take more than a mediocre effort.
Yeah.
And so at some point you've got to make. I reached a point where I have to make choices, and that choice basically came down to those people who discouraged my efforts or didn't oppose or didn't affirm them or whatever. My response in my heart and my mind to them was, I will love you and I will continue to be your friend, but if you can't embrace these choices that I'm making, I'm going to keep making them. And so I'm going to keep going down the road with my choices, and you get to choose whether or not you travel with me. If you want to eat your cookies and eat your Little Debbie's, which actually sounds really good right now. If you want to do all this stuff and travel with me, we'll be friends. But if you're just going to criticize me, I'm not going to stop my journey. I'm going to keep going. So that was an empowering thought for me.
Yeah, like I know, like one aspect of like if somebody watching the video is struggling with that, is deciding maybe, and you can kind of expand on this if you think there's more options, but it's kind of like one of two ways. Is if you feel like somebody that you love and you want to keep in your circle, but they're becoming an issue that's causing problems, is open communication. Like tell them, hey, I really want this and here's the reasons why. This is where I feel like you're maybe getting in the way of me. Is there a common ground? Is there a way I can help like close this gap?
Right.
So, because I know very often, like sometimes, like say, like this is a random example, but say a significant, like a husband or wife, like in their 40s, they're starting to see their body kind of deteriorate a little bit. They're no longer kind of happy when they look in the mirror, so they decide to start eating healthier, start exercising, because they just want to be happy for them.
Right.
And sometimes the spouse might think, oh my gosh, like, they're going to start looking so much better, they won't like me. So there gets to be kind of like, they won't understand, the other person won't understand from your perspective, they're just going to understand from their perspective. So if you can give them light on what your perspective is, then maybe they can, understand the process better.
I think that's spot on. I think just open, like honest communication, I think is huge, and don't assume that you know what the other person thinks, because you may not. But I'm sure you have too. But I've seen all examples. I've seen examples of spouses who begin to get scared as their spouse starts looking better. They start looking scared, like, oh my gosh, she looks better, and here I am.
They're going to leave me.
Yeah, they're going to leave me because I'm still, gross. Should we edit that?
No.
Okay, right. So,
but yeah, so you're changing physical, yes.
But then there's some. It's just like, hey man, if this is what you want to do, I mean, one of the favorite people I work with is like, the spouse is like, hey, if that's what you want to do, that's awesome. It's not what I want to do, and they figured out how to make it work. Yeah. But then oftentimes what you'll see is one spouse starts doing it, and at first the other spouse is a little skeptical, like, nah, we'll see.
Yeah. And
then they start seeing changes in their spouse, and they're like, you know what, this actually works, and they start coming along. And I probably see that as much, as anything.
Yeah, and I think often the first person has laid the groundwork for the second person.
Right.
Like they already started buying better foods, they already started creating like time habits.
Right.
Like they've started creating meal. So like they almost started paving the way so the second person can join in with a lot less like stuff in the way. Like,
right.
Yeah. So
and it's a huge. By the way, for my first, I've done 3 shows, and it's a huge commitment. Like that level of intensity is a huge commitment on the part of, if you're married or living with someone, it's a huge commitment on the part of the other person.
Very much.
I know Sherry helped me significantly, and oftentimes this is how she would help me. If you eat that, I'm going to tell Rob.
Yeah. I remember your kids would always say that.
Yeah, my kids are always like, we're going to tell Rob. I'm like, shut up, right? Okay, but because I have no carbs, so I'm incredibly healthy, right?
Yeah.
So but no, like if you have a spouses or a significant other that supports you in this, that's, man, high five them, even if they're not taking the journey with you.
Yeah, it really helps.
Sherry didn't take the. I mean, she eats clean.
Well, she already looks good.
Yeah, she looks great. Yeah. Thank you. But she didn't diet like for the show, but she really helped me with my food prep. Like, she
Yeah.
like, okay, you're not going to eat any carbs. You're not going to have any special dressings on your meat. We're
She
going to eat
became a
those.
part of it. Yeah,
she
she
became a
became
huge
part
part
of
of
it,
it. Right.
Yeah,
And
which helps a lot.
Yeah, it was absolutely huge. So high five to you, babe. She'll probably never watch this video, but still high five.
You can force her. So
Right.
yeah. So
Force her?
well, yeah. But anyhow, so then the second thing was, if you're open communication with somebody, you tell them how you feel, and then they still act negatively, you then have to let go. Like, you have to learn to let go of that person, at least the degree of like relationship.
Well,
So
you have a
that's
decision to
really
make.
hard.
Right.
Like, I think that's probably one of the hardest aspects is, like, as people grow apart in life, like you change throughout your entire life. There's people that even after retirement, they start changing their habits and the other spouse doesn't. So it's a continual process. So if you tell them you're communicating with them and they still fight against you, you have to accept that. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now how do we, like, what do I do with this? If it's a friend, you just start spending less time together. You start creating new habits, new friends. So it is hard to sometimes let people go after you made yourself vulnerable and talked.
I think,
And they still shut it down.
but this principle applies in a lot of areas. Finances, like people who are working to really straighten up their finances, there will be people who criticize that. Like, if you're, we want to be debt free, or we really want to live on a budget, there will be people who don't understand it, criticize. If you're trying to chase a dream that you have, there will be people who don't understand, who criticize you.
Yeah.
And at some point, you just have to make a decision. Do I want this dream, or do I want this person in my life? And you have to make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's unfortunate, but it's just true. And here's the thing that I found, and you probably have too: new habits bring new friends.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like you're going to be lonely. They'll
They
bring
have the
new
potential
friends.
to. They have the potential to. Because we have some people join the gym, and like they're maybe shy by nature. They've been around for 3 or 4 weeks and haven't really met some people. They just have to say hello. Like, you have to actually,
Right.
if you want to be social, you have to make a step towards the middle.
Right.
So sometimes, like when you say like new friends, there are tons of opportunities. Not even this gym, like any gym people go to, very often there's classes involved. Like, you start to see the same people every time. So putting in the effort to be more social
Right.
can then give you that new circle of friends. So I think sometimes people will come in and they just expect it to like come at them. Sometimes you have to come at it. So, yeah.
That's true. I guess what I'm thinking is, like, when you begin to develop new habits, you put yourself in a new envernment, so
And
you
there's
increase the
possibilities.
likelihood
Yeah,
of
yeah, absolutely,
right.
yeah.
So you're putting yourself in a
Yeah.
new context.
Yeah.
Right. So be friendly.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's just like, my point was is you do get sometimes people will join, and like maybe a month or two in, you find out that they're a little lonely. They would like to have a training partner.
Right.
And then in my mind, like being the owner, I'm like, well, what were you doing for the last couple of months? Like, why didn't you
Right.
talk to people? So
Right.
so it is true. Like, you're right that it opens up the possibility for new
Right.
friends and new like social circles.
Right.
So yeah. So before we wrap this up, I want to go back a little bit and talk about time management. Like, so if you're trying to fit in healthy foods and stuff, like how do you, like, what's a practical application of time management? For
Oh, that's such a great question.
So-
I read this probably 3 years ago. If time is an issue for you, it's actually worth it. You'll get more benefit by if you were to skip a gym session and spend that time prepping food.
That's true. Yeah.
You will get more benefit from that 2-hour block of time, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
And here, like, literally, what we do is we'll just grill a week's worth of chicken, and I'll make a week's worth of rice, and we just make this food. We'll take a night and just make a week's worth of food, and it's amazing, man. Because here's the thing: if the good food isn't there, you'll usually go like
Convenience.
right. You go
whatever's
Little
convenient.
Debbie's, right? Just
Yes,
but,
fast food.
or fast
junk
food.
like that.
Yeah, just crap.
Yeah.
But if you've taken the time, if you've taken the 2 hours, and it's great because Sherry and I actually do it together. So we'll prep chicken, we'll make vegetables, we'll make our rice and get potatoes all ready. And if you don't have a spouse, you listen to podcasts, you listen to music. You can hang out with your spouse
Like,
or
do
your
something
significant
you
other.
feel that's beneficial other than
Right.
the action of what you're doing. Like, add another benefit on top of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something like meal prepping, like prepping everything ahead of time. So that's a big thing, is like if somebody's struggling with trying to fit in healthy foods. Like, I know, for example, not everybody maybe wants to take, a couple hours on like a Sunday, but just taking a little bit of time every night. Like, then like at night making the shake or the breakfast you might want.
Right.
Like having it pre-made and pre-ready. So if you get up a little bit late, which everyone does, you're not going to be like, I don't have time, then you just
Right,
skip it.
right.
So having as much stuff prepared as you can helps a lot. So yeah.
Well, yeah, for us, and we have six kids, and there's 8 people in my house. So, I mean, there's not, like, by the time we shut the house on at night, we're ready to go to bed. I don't want to make food. So for us, it works to actually spend a 2-hour chunk and make a lot of food. But you may not be in that position. You may actually be able to just crank out a,
Well, it shows, like, do what works for you.
Right.
Like, you know, so try some of these concepts, and then maybe you have to modify or change it a little bit, but this will give you some thoughts to start with.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay, so that's basically some good suggestions from Paul, and we'll keep the series going. We'll have a video from Jonathan and Lauren and myself. So hopefully these videos are helpful, and if you ever do need anything from us, like you have a question you want to bounce off of us, what's your email? How can I get a hold of you? Maybe not email, but how would you like them to get a hold of you?
Rob Polenic at it's V Paul Peterson, THE Paul Peterson at gmail.com.
Okay, there you go. So if you have a question, if you have a maybe a large family, spouse, or anything like that, and you wonder how he does it, you can get in touch with him and find out.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Thank you.